This is the I Heart My Life show. Welcome to the I Heart My Life show. I'm so excited about today's episode with the incredible Emmy Robin. And she's here to talk to us all about birth, supporting women through that process, trauma, and all the things that come with the work that she does, no longer calling herself a doula, but as a birth keeper, which is so beautiful. So excited to dive into this conversation. I have a lot to learn from you, I know. And also, I personally had a home birth and an experience with a midwife and a doula. So I have a whole, story and experience around that as well that we can chat about a little bit more. But yeah, so excited to learn from you and hear about your world.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, I could dive into why I call myself a birth keeper and not a doula. There's a lot, getting into becoming a doula. At first, I thought it was something that it actually isn't. And the certifications that I went through to become a doula, really, I found were just as indoctrinating as, becoming a nurse or becoming a midwife and getting a license. And it really was just teaching you to always refer to the medical professional. Don't ever give medical advice to your client. Don't ever overstep your boundaries. If you see the doctor doing something, you just sit quietly because you're the doula and that's your role. And you've taken this certification. And I started in the hospital system as a doula and I just couldn't do it anymore. I found myself angry and sick and tired and like literally physically sick for days after hospital births. And it wasn't until I started doing home birth that I was like, oh, this is how birth is supposed to be. And I can just be in like the support and loving role that a doula is supposed to be in. I don't have to be the bulldog advocate, and a lot of doulas think that that's what they have to be. And you shouldn't have to be that in birth. You shouldn't have to advocate for a mother.
Yeah, so let's chat a little bit about all of that because that's so
Yeah.
important. So when you became a doula and you ended up working in the hospital system, what was your initial thought process around what doula work would look like? Because I think that there are some stereotypes out there and I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I've been a massage therapist since I was 19. I went to school and I have always been fascinated with the anatomy and physiology of the human body and just how we work. And in my 20s, I started leaning more towards naturopathic medicines, and so I stopped doing Western medications and things like that, and just really aiding my body in its natural physiological process. Anytime I would get sick, I would supplement with vitamins and things like that versus going to a doctor. And so I think also I just kind of had what I call savior complex. I really believed that I was saving these women. I mean, I talk about it now. I mean, this is April of 2025. As of right now, I've done over 100 births and I've only had one of my moms end up in a C-section, which is less than 1%, which is very, very rare. And I do believe that a lot of it has to do with I do protect the women a lot, but it's the education beforehand. And that's something that I've gotten really good at now is the educating. And I find that that's the most important role of the doula is to educate and empower and help a mom break down her fears. But what I really thought I was doing back then was saving these women. I would keep the nurses and the doctors out of the room as long as possible. We would try to labor at home as long as possible. If it was an induction, we would try to do it as naturally as possible, and I just thought that, me being there was the, reason they had a successful vaginal trauma-free birth. But like looking back, there was still so much trauma, but the mother's vagus nerve and body recognized it, but like she loved her birth experience, which I love. But looking back, I was experiencing the trauma, seeing them take the baby to the warmer, cut the cord, prematurely. All these things that I knew in my nervous system just were not good. And I did a couple births before I myself got pregnant with my first at 37, had her at 38. And I went the midwife route. I did the birth center because I thought that was the safe middle ground between hospital and home. Because again, I would see hospitals save women from these things, not realizing that the iatrogenic care was actually what was causing a lot of these things. But so I thought, oh, not quite ready for home birth yet, but I'll do birth center. And yeah, long story short, I ended up in emergency C-section because I was geriatric and I was gestationally diabetic and I was all these things. And the midwives just did not want me to have my baby at the birth center. Looking back, I knew they were going to transfer me regardless of how my birth went, looking back. And I have that radical responsibility. And this is the work that I do with women when I break down their birth trauma. I'm like, we're going to take responsibility for some of this so it doesn't happen next time. But yeah, so after having that C-section, which I hadn't witnessed as a doula, and I didn't witness trauma as a doula at that point, I was like, whoa, how did my birth experience have been so different than all these women that I've supported? And I just dove. It was like diving off of a cliff headfirst. I was like, I am not going to let this define me. I am not going to let this be my story. I am not going to fall into a depression. I have a baby to take care of that I was completely disconnected from. I had no connection or bonding to her because of our experience. And it was very hard. I had to build that from scratch. And I just dove into the vagus nerve and how important that is in birth, and just realized I had so much fear that was hidden inside of my body before choosing this natural birth. No matter how much hypnobirthing I did or how many beautiful births that I saw, I myself hadn't done the work to really fully have the birth that I deserved. And from there, I decided that I wanted to take VBACs, any VBAC that was willing to have me in their birth, whether it was hospital or home. I was determined to see as many VBACs as a doula.
And what's a VBAC?
A vaginal birth after a C-section.
Okay.
Right? So it's a mom who had a C-section or a traumatic birth and then wants to do it vaginally the next time around. And the hospital ones, I had to fight pretty hard, but they would get their VBAC. And the home VBACs, which we call an H-VBAC, a home birth after C-section, those were just like, it just felt so good in my nervous system that wow, these women thought their bodies were broken. They were told their bodies were broken. And not only did they do it, they did it at home, and it just happened so with at the hospital, everything was high alert. We're always on alert. We have to have an extra nurse because you're a VBAC. We're going to charge you for that and all these things. And I did 25 VBACs in a row as a doula. And it was just incredible, 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 incredible. And I was like, whoa, but I found that I was doing a lot of the work in their prenatal care. So we were going over their first birth, and I was able to spot exactly where they messed with their birth because I had done that work on myself. I had looked back and I was like, dude, every day I went to the birth center, they made me step on a scale and then they would point out my weight. It's just the little things. And then the first anatomy scan that I got, they were like, wow, she's got a big head. Just little things, and I point these things out to women, things like that will stick into your nervous system and they will rear their ugly head in your birth.
Yeah.
And so then I really found the importance of educating. And so it wasn't just being a doula. It was I was giving them their own personalized childbirth education, and I was breaking down their first birth. I mean, I would still have first-time moms within all of this, and really, look, you can take the hypnobirthing class, that's fine, but a lot of women will do that and it goes out the window. When you're in labor, sometimes it's doesn't matter how much hypnobirthing you took. If you have fears or you have your mom or your aunts or your best friends or your cousins or your sister's birth trauma story that has been told to you stuck in your head, and that's your fear, there's no amount of hypnobirthing that's going to get rid of that. You know what I mean? So I address that and I try to get the vagus nerve as regulated as possible before birth. And then a role of a doula is to just keep that ventral vagal system really calm because that's our autonomic nervous system. That's what puts us in fight and flight. And so when I really started diving deep into that, I only wanted to do home birth because I realized that my nervous system was getting activated every time I just stepped into the hospital. So that home birth work became deeper and deeper and deeper, Yeah. And I just haven't looked back since. I mean, the past year and a half, I've been working specifically with a really sovereign midwife who doesn't even cervical check women. And we go past 42 weeks. And I just did Dr. Stu's breech workshop. So I can assist I've caught many babies because the mom is just so relaxed and the midwife doesn't make it, but I'm on the phone with her, and it's like it just happens so quickly. There's nothing blocking there. There's no fear. So I wanted to be prepared if I ever saw a butt that I knew what to do. And so, yeah, I got certified in breech. But yeah, I'm not a midwife. I don't want to be a midwife. I have no desire to be a midwife. I love being the doula, the birth keeper, the lover of on mom. I like to massage and counter pressure and coach her and really just empower her and the partner as well. And to me, that's what feels really good in my nervous system. I don't like the medical. I don't want to deal with placentas and all of that. That's the midwife's role. My role is to really just empower the mom and yeah,
Yeah, so
just
let's I want to take it back a little bit. I love your
yeah.
story so much. Thank you. But
Yeah.
I'm thinking a lot of people probably don't even know the difference between a doula and a midwife. Can you educate us a little bit?
Sure. The midwife is the medical. So the midwife is she's going to be doing your prenatals, checking on you, checking on baby. And this is also a misconception. People think home birth is safe and not safe and dangerous, and it's actually very very safe. Midwives are they will monitor the baby whether it's with fetal scope or Doppler, listening to the heartbeat every time they have a prenatal. They're doing measurements and just making sure baby's growing beautifully and really going over like your nutrition with you. That's something that like obstetricians don't really do that I really love about prenatal care with midwifery is they'll sit for you like for 60 to 90 minutes. They'll sit with you and they'll address like emotional things or, physical things that maybe you might not feel comfortable talking to your OB about, but yeah, they really get to the root of everything. So it's throughout your pregnancy they're really taking care of you in a full spectrum. And then
Yeah.
when the birth comes, they basically have all the medications that are needed if it's needed. They are very very trained and skilled in vaginal delivery. They're very skilled in resuscitation with babies, more so I believe than hospitals. They really know how to honor that mother baby dyad after the baby comes out. They do not separate the baby from mom even if baby needs to be worked on, and it's done so beautifully at home. I've seen the exact same emergency situation happen in a hospital and at home, and baby in a hospital ends up in NICU and baby at home is amazing 3 minutes later. You know what I mean? And it really has to do with the fact that midwives know how to handle those situations. And yeah, they'll make the call if there is a true emergency. They will make that call long before it gets emergent to get a mom to a hospital so that they can be in safe hands. And then a doula is going to basically just be your support system. Usually we're really good at breaking down your fears because in pregnancy, especially first time, you're going to have, is this normal? Is this normal? I mean, I can't tell you how many pictures of toilet paper with things on it that I have in my phone, and most of the time I'm like, yes, that's totally normal. If it's something medical, I always refer to the midwife. I always say, send that to your midwife. Actually, that's a good question for them. But for the most part, I'm really just breaking down fears. I'm empowering the mom, just guiding her through her pregnancy with childbirth education. We go over breastfeeding. I'm also a lactation counselor. I've 136 hours in lactation. So I have more than most lactation consultants. But yeah, so I really just kind of do all the other stuff that's not medical. I am her epidural. So again, being a massage therapist, when I get to a mom in labor, I'll help her with positions that feel comfortable, but that also assist in baby coming down the pelvis. And yeah, I'll massage her, I'll counter pressure, I'll do hip squeezes. We always hear about the hip squeezes. They're amazing in labor. It's like so good when you get somebody who knows how to hip squeeze. But yeah, it's really just when a mom gets to that point where she feels like she can't do it anymore, or, I'm there to really hold that space and help her really with her goal. And her goal is to get that, undisturbed physiological birth because she knows the benefits of it. And I do everything that I possibly can to keep her there, keep her mindset there, keep her physical body there, keep her baby calm. And really, it has to do with just keeping her nervous system calm. And yeah, just keeping her in faith over fear, really. And then when the baby comes out, I will usually assist the midwife in cleaning up. And I stick around and I make sure that mom gets a really good latch for breastfeeding. And then postpartum, I just am there for mom to text or call if she has questions and she doesn't want to bug the midwife. Yeah, so I'm still friends. One of my mama's babies just turned 6. It's cool. Like they become sisters to me. So yeah, your doula is like your sister. It's your support. It's who you would, you know, tell that your husband's making you pissed off, or you're gonna like vent to your doula, and then your midwife is your medical person. They're
Yeah.
they're they're the person that's going to take care of you and baby medically.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And before we get to, I want to share a little bit about my story because I know you and
Yeah.
I crossed paths in Austin, but I actually
Yeah.
looked to hire you, but you were fully booked.
Yeah.
Everyone was raving about you. So,
Oh.
and I can see why. Tell all of the listeners and people watching, why are home births so powerful? Why are you such an advocate for that versus a hospital birth?
Yeah. So, undisturbed physiological birth, God designed us to do this that way. And when I say undisturbed, I mean truly undisturbed. No natural induction. I mean, no primrose oil, no castor oil, no tinctures, no herbs, nothing. You don't need anything. You need a team around you that really supports that, because when you witness it, when you really see a truly undisturbed birth, like mom isn't getting vaginal exams, like nothing, the power and the intuition that she has to go in and meet. She has to meet herself. And the mother is born through that. And it's hard to explain, but the women who have these disrupted births, those are the ones that are highly anxious postpartum. They can't figure out why they feel this way. Maybe it's postpartum depression 8, 9 months later. Maybe they have issues with breastfeeding, or they're just constantly questioning, like, is my baby okay? Is my baby okay? When you mess with a mother's intuition in pregnancy, in labor, in birth, you really are messing with her mother intuition that God gave her. And you'll see this with like the Free Birth Society and people that, really go deep down that hole of like, do not mess with this. Don't seek outside validation. And I'm somewhere in between. Like, I do believe like, hey, just if you're a VBAC, just, I don't know, make sure your placenta isn't growing into your scar. And then that's it. Like to me, it's like, you want to make sure that you're healthy enough and you're safe to have a home birth, right? There are contraindications, but yeah, it's, to me, when you see the difference, because I do the trauma work, because I talk to women, and it's not just hospital birth. It's not the difference between home birth and hospital birth. It's undisturbed physiological birth versus the rest. Because there's a lot of home births out there that are traumatic, and mothers that read my book, that listen to my podcast, they see this. They're like, oh, wow, I thought my birth was okay, but I didn't get that high afterwards that everybody talks about. And I had so many issues breastfeeding, or I felt really, really anxious, or I had postpartum depression, or I had postpartum hemorrhage. Like, that's another thing, is I've never seen hemorrhage ever in my practice. And that's because I really respect that third stage. There's a whole, the baby comes out, you're not done. You're not done with labor. There's a whole other birth that has to happen. And some midwives, obstetricians definitely don't honor that. It's like shot up a Pitocin, let's pull it out. But some midwives don't respect that either, right? It starts with the whole process from pregnancy to postpartum. And my book really, really explains it. My podcast explains it too, but not everybody has 60 hours to sit and listen. So
Yeah.
I wrote a really, really, really short 120-page book because it was 1,000 pages, and I just condensed it down to undisturbed physiological birth and the benefits of it. Because people don't realize that even if you want a natural, unmedicated birth in a hospital, just to get to that labor and delivery room, you have already messed with the process of labor tenfold. And I
In what
list
way?
them all in my book, and so an OB has never, ever, ever in their lives, unless they have done a free birth themselves or sat in the corner of a room and watched undisturbed physiological birth, they don't even know what it looks like. They think we are crazy hippie women, that we are choosing to birth our babies at home, not close to an emergency room. But what they don't realize is that the outcomes that I see are way better than what they see. I see healthier babies. I see healthier breastfeeding journeys. I see healthier mothers regulated and in love with their babies postpartum. Their intuition is higher. They are more mama bears. They don't want to go back to work. They want to stay with their babies longer. It's a whole thing. Like, it literally changes you when you birth undisturbed. And I'm talking like even just one cervical check, it disrupts you. And if you can birth completely undisturbed, I promise you will see why God created us to be the ones to hold the torch, to grow the life and birth the baby. Because the pain or the intensity that you feel in birth, that and then money are really the two reasons why people will choose hospital. They're scared of the pain or they can't afford it. And I'm like, well, actually, a hospital, if you end up in a C-section, unfortunately, you might end up with a deductible the same as, paying a
Yep.
midwife. So it's really sad that, when I try to teach about undisturbed physiological birth, I'm like crazy. People think I'm crazy, and it's like, well, you don't see what I see. Hundreds of women, like, just going from a traumatic birth, whether it was just a slightly intervened home birth the first time, not even that bad. Like, baby, mom were fine after, but something was off. They felt it. And then they listened to my podcast or they read my book and they're like, whoa, okay, I would like to try it differently. Can I hire you and Anya? Or, so,
Yeah.
and then then they're like, oh my gosh, birth is supposed to be addictive. We're supposed to want to have more and more and more and more and more. That's how God created it. And if you birth undisturbed, you want to have another one. Like,
Mm.
you want to keep going until your womb stops working.
Yeah.
You want to have a million babies, because it is cool. It's really cool what happens if you can really birth like that.
Yeah. So I'm so curious to hear, your thoughts on my experience after everything that you've shared, because I'm starting to see a few red flags, even just in, these 20 minutes.
Let's
Um,
go.
let's go. So, like a lot of the ladies that I'm connected with in Austin, many of us are into more natural ways of doing things. And so I started to talk to people locally about different options. And I know some
Yeah.
of the ladies were moms that you've supported. And I just felt like it was going to be the right decision for me, because I didn't want to have to go to the hospital and go through that whole thing. And I started
Yeah.
to talk to the midwife I hired about all the benefits of home birth and all the things that the hospital is doing unnecessarily that aren't actually helpful, but in, the complete opposite.
Yeah.
So anyway, it felt good to me to birth at home. And I had a midwife, super experienced. She has 4 kids of her own. She gave birth to her last on her own in her house with no support.
Beautiful. Yeah.
And so, I felt confident with her, and I had a really amazing pregnancy. And I don't think it was considered non-invasive, because there were a few times towards the end that she checked me. Other than that, it was, I think, non-invasive.
Was there a reason why she wanted to do a cervical check before you were even in labor?
I can't remember.
Yeah, I can tell you right now, ladies, anybody listening, please, please just stop letting people put their hands in your vagina. It tells you nothing. Even in labor, it tells you nothing. I see women go from a 1 to a 10 in 45 minutes. It tells you nothing. I see women at 10 that are told to push, and then they're pushing for 10 hours.
Wow.
And they weren't supposed to push, but they got the check and the midwife was like, you're at a 10, you can push. So just not knowing and listening to your body. Sorry, I had to
Yeah.
stop there
Thank you.
because just getting a cervical check before labor already screams midwife to me. Not midwife.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Keep
And
going.
no, I appreciate it. Like that's what I want to hear. And so anyway, I ended up going a few days early with my daughter. I, lost my mucus plug, all the things, and
Yeah.
was laboring at home from like around 10 p.m. I started to feel just contractions, I guess. And then around 7 a.m. I told my husband, I was like, why isn't anyone here supporting me? And like, it hadn't been that long, but it felt like it was forever. And so the doula came and was really lovely. And then the midwife came a few hours later with her additional support hand. And she, from what I can tell, like did everything perfectly and was checking me, but not, in there the whole time, and was just, taking down all of the notes and looking at my vitals, et cetera. And then there was a point where I don't know if it was taking too long or I was just in so much pain that she said, we can either just continue like this or I can break your water for you and it'll go faster.
Ah!
Yeah. And
I talk
so,
about it. Why are we rushing it? Like, you were tired.
yeah.
You were tired. So I tell people this all the time. Labor most likely is going to start at night. Always.
Mhm.
Like, my labor with my second luckily started at 5:30 in the morning and I had her at 7 o'clock at night. But it's going to start at night. And so you go to sleep. You don't try to progress it. You don't try to do anything. You go to sleep. And it comes so much that you cannot sleep anymore. You get a heating pad, you go take a bath, whatever you can do to take naps. You just nap, 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 nap all through early labor because you're going to need that strength when it kicks over. And your body was probably tired and slowing down so that you could sleep. I put women to sleep in transition all the time.
Mm.
It's a great gift. Like you get like an hour nap. The labor slows down for an hour when a mom is at like 9 centimeters. What would they do in the hospital if your labor slowed down for an hour? They'd be like, your failure to progress,
Mhm.
stalling. We need to give you Pitocin. No, the baby takes naps. The baby had been in labor all night. The baby was in
Mhm.
labor from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. with you
Mhm.
and was probably tired and needed a nap. But like, I'm sure they were probably like, did they make you pump your boobs? Did they give you the tinctures? All the
Yeah.
things? Yeah. So they were trying to speed it up when really what Anya and I do is slow it down.
Mm.
Like, not
Yeah.
with anything, just mom, baby's going to come. You need to sleep. We need to get you some rest. And people are like, there's no way. When I was in the active labor and it was coming every 3 minutes, there's no way I could have slept. I promise you, you could have slept. You could have slept.
Yeah.
And you didn't have that support. Okay, keep going. Sorry, I'm
Yeah.
listening. Yes, break
No,
your
I appreciate
waters.
it. Yeah. So, and I'm like the type of person who likes to move quickly. And so this was classic, like want to move quickly. And so she broke the water. And I honestly don't remember like what time that was at, but I think from like what time during the day. But I
Yeah,
believe the baby then like it was 3 hours later or something that she was born.
yeah.
And I had like she came out pretty quickly, like there was no problems with her, she was amazing, all the things, but then when it came to my placenta it wouldn't come out.
Yes,
And
retained placenta, and that's because we messed with the oxytocin in labor.
okay, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Because and so
That's where
I
I see hemorrhage. I don't see hemorrhage, but when I break mom's birth down and they say I hemorrhaged so bad, I'm so scared to do it at home. And I say, well, let's go through your birth. And they say, well, she came and she cervical checked. It just like starts. I'm like, you've already messed with your labor, breaking the water, all of it.
got it. Yeah.
That's why the placenta stayed in there.
Hmm.
Your
Yeah.
body was not ready to have the baby yet.
Mm. Yeah. And so then she tried to like manually get it out and couldn't. And so
So
yeah.
she stuck her whole hand up in you. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Most painful thing I've ever experienced.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Did she do
And
Pitocin?
no.
Okay.
Yeah. And then they felt that I needed to be transferred to the hospital, which I was.
For a DNC.
Uh-huh. Well, they didn't
Mhm.
know if I needed that yet. They wanted to see if they could get it out. The doctor could manually get it out. So, yeah, when I got there, he didn't stick his hands up. He just manually like tried to do it on the outside of my stomach, and was able to get it out. But then my midwife came with me, to the hospital, and she felt like there was a piece of the placenta missing. And so she was worried that I had retained placenta. And so then I had to get a DNC. And so, and I was separated obviously from my daughter, throughout
Yeah.
this whole thing. And
Yeah.
my husband spent the night with her on his
Yeah.
own.
Yeah.
And so luckily they let me go home the next day. But obviously like that's super traumatic.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. I know. Yeah. That was that you didn't deserve that. You didn't cause any of that. You just didn't have somebody who truly knows how to support women in your birth space. And unfortunately, your story, there's so many women that I talk to that have this exact story. I'm actually sitting with a mom in June that doesn't want to hire a midwife. She just wants a doula. She wants to free birth, but she wants a doula. She has your exact story. Literally to the T. Only
wow.
she was like hemorrhaging really bad and the placenta wasn't coming out. So they had to transfer her.
Yeah.
And she had like no breastfeeding journey whatsoever. I mean, baby formula the whole way, right? So this second time around, she doesn't even trust having any midwife in her birth because she's so traumatized. And that's what I'm talking about. This is what I'm speaking to is home birth is not meant to have that story. It's not. You just didn't have somebody with patience. Your placenta would have come out. Doesn't matter that you intervened with your birth and all of that and you had the retained placenta. It took 2.5 hours for this last mom that we just did. But we were like rubbing her legs and I went and made her some scrambled eggs and toast with butter. And like we were breastfeeding. I was helping her breastfeed. It was like 1.5 hours. Oh, we're still good. She's not bleeding. It's fine. Placenta will come off when the placenta. There was so much that happened in the birth and you were so exhausted. You were so exhausted. Your body was exhausted. And these people were expecting your placenta to perform like it should have performed. But the problem with that is sometimes it takes a couple hours for a placenta to come out. But all we hear and all the midwives learn in school is that if it doesn't come out between 5 and 30 minutes, there's an issue. And your license is on the line if a mom hemorrhages.
Yeah.
But the problem is that they don't realize that if they don't mess with you, like they could have done like some blue cohosh and some angelica root on you and just let you be, let you breastfeed, let you have that skin to skin, let you smell your baby, kiss your baby, cuddle with your husband. Oh my gosh, we have this beautiful baby. That's what releases the oxytocin again. And that's what gets the uterus clamping down again. And sometimes it doesn't happen in 30 minutes. My cord pulsed for 22 minutes. The placenta doesn't come off until the cord stops pulsing. The cord pulsed for 22 minutes.
Yeah.
In a hospital, can you imagine if I was in the hospital, they would have cut that mofo after 90 seconds and she would have lost all that blood that she was supposed to get. And then they would have tried to get that placenta to come off and it wasn't ready to come off so my placenta didn't come out for like 40 minutes. You know what I mean? Like, but being who I wasn't going to let them rush that process, but you didn't deserve what happened to you. Like that, your body recognizes that was not right. That was wrong. But you can look back and you can see that I'm not blaming the midwife at all, right? That midwife doesn't know what she doesn't know, right? She doesn't see what I see with this sovereign midwife. And we've only just started doing this for 18 months. We're like literally 0 cervical checks. If a mom begs for us to break her water, sorry, we're going to address what's going on. Why are you trying to rush things? The universe has a way, God has a way of teaching us what we need to learn through birth. That's what I mean. Like you're probably type A, just like me. You're on a schedule. Why is it not happening? It needs to happen now. And there's consequences. And birth teaches us to slow down because as a mother, we have to slow down. We can't just keep being type A and go, 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 go. We have to slow down. The first 40 days, if you look at that, I have moms that are like, I have a mom yesterday that just reminded me that when her first, because we're doing her second free birth, right? She doesn't want a midwife because the midwife gave her Pitocin at 26 minutes because it was past 25 and that was after their comfort. And she said no. They were like, we're going to give you Pitocin. And she was like, no, I don't want it. And they still did it. Talk about taking her autonomy away. So she doesn't want a midwife in her space. She doesn't trust that. This is where the Free Birth Society was born, Emily. Your story, stories like yours, right? And they think Free Birth Society is a cult. There's part of it that I'm like, it's a little bit too, like, that's a little too risky, right? Like, you should check on the baby, healthy mom and healthy baby is not the end goal, but like, you should make sure that mom is healthy enough to do a free birth if she wants to free birth. You have to nutritionally and educationally and understand undisturbed physiological birth and how your body's working. Otherwise, when those fears come up, you're going to try a castor oil smoothie on your own, and that's not safe, right? Like, you have to fully go deep and meet who you're meant to be. And I do believe that God gave us birth to teach us how to be mothers, and you have to slow down and be with yourself and with your baby. And a midwife that wants to speed up the process, or a mother that wants to speed up the process, there's consequences. I talk about it in my podcast, even with my home birth after my C-section. Right there with you, girl. I had 2 cervical checks and I broke my water because I wanted it to happen fast. Because what was my trauma? My trauma with my first was that it was 4 days of labor and I got exhausted and I needed the epidural at the hospital to help me sleep. And I said, as a VBAC, there is no way in hell I'm going back to that hospital. There's no way. And I had hit like 7 or 8 hours at this point and I was fine. I could have probably made it another 2 days, but I was so scared that it wasn't happening and that it wasn't going to happen for another 2 days, because that was my trauma. That was my fear. And I asked the midwife to break my water. And what happened? I ended up with shoulder dystocia. She got stuck. Her shoulders got stuck, which is a true emergency at home.
Yeah.
But I had a skilled midwife. But here's the thing. If I didn't break her water, they used the water sac. So she was still probably rotating, using that cushion, using that water sac to rotate the way that she wanted to come out in the proper direction. It's millimeters. If they're off by millimeters, they get stuck. And that's why the hospital sees them stuck, because they break their waters all the time. There's no way they let a baby come out in their water sac. Right. And so it's like, I messed with my own birth and I had shoulder dystocia. Was it traumatic to me? No, because I made the decision every step of the way. I begged her to cervical check me. I begged her to break my water, all of these things, right? But after her birth, God taught me so much. I was like, wow, I thought I went deep. I need to go even deeper, like, wow, look at that radical responsibility. Like, what did I do, And the midwife did everything I asked her to do. She was a great midwife, but she's also very medical. You know what I mean? I needed Anya. I needed somebody that was like, why are you breaking your water? Why do you want to do this? Why can we not just sit? Baby's coming. You're fine. I didn't have that. I had a midwife that was like ready to put me in, coach. You know what I mean? And if you're hiring that, that's what you're going to get. And you have to realize you're going to have moments of vulnerability in your birth, no matter how empowered you are. You're going to hit that transition stage and you're going to be like, just check me. Just tell me if I'm almost there. And if you're asking that question, you're probably almost there. You know what I mean? Like, you were probably in transition and it was the rest phase and the baby just wanted to sleep a little bit. And what happened is you rushed the birth along and the placenta is connected to the baby. And if the baby wasn't ready to come right then and there, that placenta probably wasn't ready to come right then and there. But also your body was exhausted. So you just needed to sleep. You just needed to get not even sleep, but just rest without pressure on your body to perform. Like, you just had a baby. Oh my gosh, that's a shock to our nervous system. And that's when we do skin to skin and we eye gaze and we kiss and we smell our baby and we breastfeed. And that was robbed. It was robbed from you because they were so worried about your placenta coming out. And that's so many women's trauma that I help break down. You're not alone. You're not alone, because everybody will be like, but you had your home birth. And you're like, are you kidding me? Don't say that to me. I didn't get my home birth. That's not, oh, but your baby was healthy. Aren't you happy? And then you're healthy. Aren't you grateful for the hospital because they were able to do the D&C? No, I didn't need that. I needed somebody who was going to be patient and let me birth my placenta on my own. And you don't deserve that. So if you ever want to do it again, you know what happened. Your placenta comes off the way it's supposed to. Your body works the way it's supposed to. You just need proper support. You just need someone that's going to support you properly.
Thank you. I hope you're enjoying the episode so far. Before we get back to the interview, I wanted to share a little something I think you'll find valuable. If you're looking for more clarity on what you want in life or feel like something is holding you back, I've created a free Dream Life Guide just for you. It's a step-by-step resource to help you get clear on your goals and break through any mindset blocks that might be in the way. You can grab it at iheartmylife.com/guide. So head over to iheartmylife.com/guide to download it for free. All right, now back to the conversation. And I know that a lot of your work, like you said at the beginning, was about supporting people through trauma, like what I described. And so what does that look like? And, for example, obviously I just described a lot of things that are clearly still painful for me, but one of the biggest is like how much it hurt and my sort of disbelief that I could handle the pain again. And that makes a hospital birth with the drugs sound a lot better, if I'm being honest. And yet I know all the benefits of the home birth and everything you just described. Like I have the education, but there's so much fear of the pain that even the thought of it makes me not want to do it.
Yeah. When you learn about undisturbed physiological birth, when you really learn about the benefits of feeling the sensations, right? So let's talk about what the epidural does. The epidural doesn't just cut off your pain receptors, it cuts off access to the baby. So the baby's brain is connected to your brain, and it's a whole symbiotic relationship that happens in labor via hormones. So hormones are kind of, and our emotions and our feelings, like if we're stressed and we're feeling cortisol, the baby feels stress and cortisol. If we're happy, the baby feels happy. The baby feels what we feel. And so in undisturbed physiological birth, the process is when the baby's ready to be born, the baby will release something called prostaglandins. It's the same thing that's found in semen. It softens your cervix. It really makes it nice and soft so that when labor, is happening, the pressure of the baby's head can really efface and dilate that cervix. And so they release this hormone, this prostaglandins, and that kind of signals to the brain like, I'm ready to be bathed in oxytocin, right? So then your brain releases oxytocin, which is the love hormone, the orgasm hormone. This is why they call it orgasmic birth. It's not that you have a physical orgasm while you're birthing. You are just so bathed in oxytocin because you don't have fear or cortisol coming in. You understand that the sensations and the intensity that's happening is a really cool symbiotic relationship with your baby. And your baby is not feeling pain because guess what? When your brain releases that oxytocin, it bathes you in that oxytocin. It bathes your baby in that love hormone. And then what that does is it causes the uterus to contract. So oxytocin is really what you need to make the uterus contract. It is the hormone that makes labor work. And when you're not releasing oxytocin, when you're around bright lights in a sterile environment, people are asking you questions, you're getting cervical checked, you have a monitor on your belly, you have people putting IVs in you, you have people asking you questions, people coming in disrupting you every 20 minutes to take your blood pressure, blah, 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 blah. That's going to disrupt your oxytocin. So then what are you going to need? Synthetic oxytocin. Okay. You're going to need Pitocin, which is synthetic oxytocin, which does not affect your body the way that it's supposed to. And the baby is no longer being bathed in oxytocin, in love, because you're getting it synthetically. So now they're just feeling the stress of the contractions, which are way stronger with synthetic oxytocin. That's not working with your body to see what your muscle can withstand. And it's squeezing the baby probably a little bit too hard. And the baby's not getting bathed in love at the same time to keep them calm. Right? So the reason why babies' heart rates just stay so perfect, you would think like you're getting squeezed and you're like doing all this weird, wouldn't you think like babies would be like freaked out all the time? No, they stay chill the whole time when you don't mess with it, because when you don't mess with it, the mom's being bathed in oxytocin the whole time. So when she's not interfering and she's broken down all of her fears and she's done all the work and she doesn't fear the pain, but she welcomes it and its intensity. It's not pain. It's only pain if you have fear. Fear creates tension in your body, and the tension creates pain. If you can break down all the fear, all birth trauma stories that you've heard, your own birth trauma story, which I could work with you one-on-one. I do somatic EMDR. I can help you with all of it one-on-one. It would take a lot longer than this podcast. But when you break down the fear by learning what the benefits of undisturbed physiological birth are. So you're bathing your baby in oxytocin. So your baby's staying nice and bathed in love, in that love hormone. They're happy. They're happy in labor, right? That's why when we listen, it's like, shoo, shoo, shoo. Oh, it's a happy baby. The baby's happy, right? So what happens when that contraction happens and then it's done? And then your body gets flooded with endorphins. So you release natural painkillers if, again, you're staying relaxed and you're trusting the process and you're going inward and you're welcoming those sensations, the endorphins will bathe you. So you'll get natural painkillers, but not just you, your baby gets them. So your baby's getting flooded in endorphins because this is a natural symbiotic hormone cocktail and relationship that's happening in birth. When you cut that off by getting an epidural, your body is no longer feeling the pain. It's no longer feeling those pain receptors aren't hitting your brain anymore. So your brain isn't releasing oxytocin and your brain isn't releasing endorphins. So now your baby's getting over squeezed. They're freaking out on Pitocin because you have to have Pitocin now that you have an epidural because your body's going to stop eventually releasing oxytocin because it's not feeling the sensations to release more oxytocin. That's why usually it's the cascade of interventions. When you get the epidural, you're going to need the Pitocin usually. Unless you're at like an 8 when you walk into that hospital and you're like, just give me the epidural to push the baby out. But again, what are we doing? We're cutting off that baby's oxytocin. We're cutting off that baby's endorphins. So now that baby's freaked out because it can't hear you or it can't communicate with you. It doesn't know if you're happy, sad, scared. So now that baby's on its own. That baby has to navigate your pelvis on its own. You can't move anymore. So now you're stuck on your back. And so now that's the worst position to be for a baby to navigate your pelvis, right? All of this to just not feel the sensation of birth, right? So what are we doing? We're not just cutting off our own sensations. We're stressing our baby out. And then they have to pull the baby out. They have to do all these things. So then you end up tearing. It's the worst. I don't know why women choose this. I mean, I do know why. It's because they hear the horror stories and they're like, I would rather just knock me out. Give me the epidural. And I'm like, but what are we doing in that? We're not thinking about the baby because they don't know. We're not taught this. They don't know that getting an epidural stresses the baby out. I mean, your blood pressure tanks when you get that epidural. You feel like crap, but not only you, your baby. You have to trust that your baby's not going to tank when you get that epidural. And it happens. Crash C-section, boom, the epidural hasn't kicked in yet. We got to go. We got to knock you out now, right? There's so many risks in the hospital. And people think that's where I'm safe. No, that's not where you're safe. That's where you're just going to be intervened with. And your baby's going to come into this world just stressed out. Like their nervous system didn't even have time to develop because it was just like intervened with. And then you have these stressed out little kids, that, oh, my baby couldn't latch, or, oh, yeah, my milk supply was blah, blah, blah. It's like, yeah, you intervened with so much. So how do I work with women? We talk about the benefits of undisturbed physiological birth, but we really go through what I just did with you, like in 10 minutes. We take that and it's not just a 20-minute. I go deep with these women. You have to understand how your body actually works in labor. And from there, it's almost like a light goes off, right? Like you said, even in the first 20 minutes, you're like, oh my gosh, okay, I can kind of see this now, right? But it's taking that radical responsibility. It's saying, I should have spotted these red flags when my midwife wanted to cervical check me before labor even started. I should have spotted that. But you don't know to spot that because you're not taught that. You just think that's them doing their job and that's part of midwifery care and it is what it is. No, that's not part of midwifery care. That should never be part of midwifery care. Sticking your hand up a woman's vagina should never be part of midwifery care. They use that as a validation of where you are in labor, and it drives me nuts. It's called midwifery. It's medical midwives. It's midwives that don't trust what's happening inside the mom's body. So they need to physically stick their hands up there to see what's happening in the mom's body. But what they don't understand is that a mom could be at a 2 and she could be in transition about to meet her baby. And you sticking your hand up there and then being like, well, you're at a 2. And then I've seen it. And then the mom transfers. So this is my early days as a doula. Mom transfers to the hospital and then baby comes out right when she gets to the hospital. And it's like, whoa, you were just at a 2. It's like, I told you she was in transition. You didn't need to stick your hand in her vagina to tell her where she was at. And then moms like your friend who went on her own podcast and told her story without processing it with me, was at a 10, was checked and was at a 10. And all the contractions stopped. Why did the contractions stop? Because somebody stuck their hand in your vagina. And I was there as her doula saying, you don't need a cervical check. You are about to meet your baby. You don't need a cervical check. And the midwife is going, that can also be really traumatic to a mom, and it's like, okay, I'm done. Hands up. I'm done. If you want a cervical check, get a cervical check. Cervical check, baby's at 10. All of a sudden the contractions stop. Oh, we got to get this baby out. No, you need to sleep. You need to sleep. So what they do, get the pump out, get the tinctures, get the this. You're at a 10. Why did the contraction stop? Oh my gosh, the contraction stopped. Oh my God, her placenta's not going to come off. She can't get the baby out. Now they're thinking ahead. Oh, the placenta's not going to come off if she doesn't have. So then she pushes a baby out without any contractions and tells this story because it's traumatic to her, because she was put on a clock because her water started with her membranes ruptured. Her labor started with her water breaking. The midwives had her on a 36-hour clock. Why? Because she was advanced maternal age. I can break all of this down. There was no need for trauma in her birth. There was no need for trauma in your birth. She didn't need to push a baby out without contractions. She needed to sleep. But as the doula, I was being overrun by medical midwives telling me to get out because I was telling her to sleep and she doesn't need a cervical check and you're fine and the baby's coming. And then it was like, why are the contractions stopping? They're telling me that's not right. The contractions are stopping, but I'm at a 10. And then it was, oh my God, she's going to have cerebral palsy because her head's stuck in my birth canal for too. It's like all these fears and crazy thoughts come in your, no, just there's women with epidurals that are at a 10 for 24 hours. A baby being in your birth canal that long is not going to cause cerebral palsy. I don't care who tells you that. Like, if that's the case, your baby is taking a rest at a moment they need to take a rest. And I see that happen right before a baby expels itself out of your body. And the midwives will preemptively tell you to start pushing because they feel that you're at a 9 or a 10. And then your cervix gets, I'm so happy that her cervix didn't get swollen and she had to transfer unnecessarily. Because I've seen women who are pushing. The one C-section, the one that I had was with a midwife I had never worked with. And this woman was getting cervical check after cervical check after cervical check. And her cervix got so swollen. And at a 10, she was pushing for like 6 hours. And her cervix was so swollen, she had to transfer to get an epidural for it to unswell. And then once it unswelled, starts pushing, that OB was not comfortable with it. So it was just cut her open. She didn't need that C-section. And I've said to her, I'm like, you can VBAC. You were there. You dilated to a 10. You can have this VBAC. But you are not going to have a midwife in your birth. That is it right there. You aren't going to have somebody to check you. And so it's like, it's this, it all starts with the cervical check.
Yeah, I remember hearing that story from our mutual friend and it was horrifying. And I was wondering what was going on there. So thank you for explaining all of that. And yeah, I know for me, I think she was just checking I have no idea. She did do a cervical scan for me the day before, or a few days before I ended up giving birth. I think it was like a week before my due date. And I honestly can't remember why, but yeah, there was one cervical exam. And then I think there was one when I actually went into labor.
But for what? What is she sticking her hand in your vagina for? To see if you're dilated? It doesn't mean anything. And also, I mean, to be honest, she probably was looking to see if she could membrane sweep you without you knowing. Cause she probably had like 3 moms that were due and she was probably like, oh, let's see if I can get her to go tonight. And then that would be easier. It's a thing. I've had women's stories be like, well, I agreed to the membrane sweep and then she broke my water at 38 weeks. And then now we have to deal with really inducing naturally at home because your baby wasn't ready to come, but you don't want to go to the hospital and your water's broken now because you agreed to a membrane. There's so many risks with somebody sticking their hand in your vagina. So many risks. And women just need to learn. I mean, seriously, like, hi, just get it. Just get it. It's 120 pages. It's so short. I made it so short so that your husband can read it because I'm sure he has a lot of trauma too. So I don't just work with the mom. I work with the partner. If you're going to get pregnant again, you're going to do it again. I meet with both and I break down exactly what happened. And I say, look, this isn't going to happen this time around because you're empowered. And because you're empowered and we got to break down all that fear, you're going to love this. You welcome the sensations of labor. Like my redemption moms. Oh man. they're like, can I go sit on the toilet? I'm going to welcome this. You know what I mean? Like they're not afraid of it because when you know that like your baby's okay and feeling that sensation is like helping you get closer to your baby and then not thinking about the timing. That's another thing is like, I have so many moms that when you don't intervene 8 to 10 minutes apart right before the baby comes. Why are we timing contractions? That's the stupidest thing that was ever invented. Like, yes, they get closer together, but I've seen so many women that have far apart contractions and they're not getting cervical checked because they don't want to. But the midwife is like, well, we still need to bring these contractions closer together. And they unnecessarily bring the contractions closer together when the baby's actually like, yo, I'm good with 8 to 10 minutes apart. Can you just like leave me alone? I'm taking little mini power naps and mom should take mini power naps and then your baby just comes out. It's really cool when you birth that way. And I would love to get you to where you want another one because yeah, or at least just release the trauma from your body, from your nervous, because I think your brain understands what happened, but your body is still holding on to that, you know? And that can cause all sorts. I've seen women that have birth trauma that cause like PCOS, it causes like endometriosis, it causes like because you hold the trauma in the body keeps score, you know?
Thank you so much for this, Emmy. It's been absolutely incredible. And I'm sure everyone is wondering where can they find you? How can they book with you? How can they work with you if they're local to Austin? Please tell us all the things.
Well, so I work virtually. I do one-on-one work virtually. And then I can help you find a doula in your area. I am connected to a network of doulas. So, you know, if you live in California, which has like really strict birth laws, you know, like I know the good ones, the ones that, you know, I can connect you with good midwives and stuff. But really it's yeah, I do one-on-one. I'm about to reopen. I had to close down my acuity scheduling for a while because it was just like out of control. I was like, there's holidays coming up. Like I gotta like slow down, but I'm opening it back up May 1st. So I will be open for one-on-one work. I'm going to offer packages for people who need more than just one session. But I usually say in one session, 1 hour session, I'm able to help you reprocess your birth. And then we can go even deeper with more sessions. But usually, once a mom goes through that one session, she can just go back, listen to my podcast, read my book, and then kind of go on the rabbit hole herself. And really, I guide women back to their bodies and following their own intuition. They don't need me to have a good birth. Like, again, I dropped that savior complex a long time ago. I like to say I empower women and I bring them back to their selves, back to their own intuition. That way, you can go forward into your next birth. And it doesn't matter if you have a midwife. If you have a midwife and you find later on in your pregnancy that she's a midwife, you'll have the intuition to not invite her into your birth space when you go into labor. And then you've gotten prenatal care and then like, oopsie, I had the baby and then come do postpartum. Whoops, I'm so sorry. It happened so fast. Like, and you just, yeah, you just maybe find someone that's willing to sit with you in a free birth if your midwife is turning midwife, you know, like just don't, don't downplay red flags. And I help women get back into their nervous system so that they can spot red flags, basically. That's the important part is when you're empowered and when you don't have fear, somebody else's fear can't affect you anymore. It's like, that's your fear. Why are you wanting to do this? Why do you want me to get an ultrasound right now? Like, I feel fine. Baby's moving. I feel great. Like, am I getting it because you're scared of something? So then you start to like really go inward into your own body. So, yeah, that's my goal. So they can find me on my website, emmyrobindoula.com, two M's, two B's, emmyrobindoula.com.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. I'm definitely going to book a session with you. I wish I was still in Austin so that I could work with you directly whenever I have another one. But so grateful for all of this information.
Yeah. I want to come to you. I want to like come and like work on you in person, girl. I want to help you. I really want to help you release this from your nervous system because your body works just fine. And yeah, if you wanted another one, it would be totally different.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Emmy. I've loved this and I know our audience has as well. So thank you again.
Thank you so much for reaching out. This was a really fun conversation. And yeah, I hope that whoever needed to hear this is listening and hears it. And if they need help processing anything, just please reach out.
Thank you for listening to the I Heart My Life show. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with 3 friends or post about it on social media using the hashtag I Heart My Life show. And don't forget to rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts. It really does help us spread the movement far and wide. Remember, everything you desire is possible. Keep believing in your dreams and taking action.